Hi everyone, this is a lesson about sustainability. This is the short version, just designed to sort of give you what you need to continue with the work. So do we know what sustainability means? Finding a definition for that is quite important. Now there's a little video down at the bottom there which kind of sums it up really nicely. If you take a moment just to watch that, it gives you a real idea of understanding that sustainability is making sure that we can keep all our resources in the world going without running them out for future generations, so we can sustain and keep everything going. That is what's really important, and the way we're living at the moment in the planet, societies around the world as a whole, that is unsustainable, which means the things that we're using will run out and we won't have them anymore, and it can be potentially dangerous, or going to be a problem for us and future generations as things start to run out. This little concept about product miles. Product miles refers to how far the things that you buy have to travel before they get to you. So for example, if you buy something from a shop, where was it made? Where was it put together? Where were the materials sourced from? So for example, you might buy a phone. That phone may have been assembled in the UK, so those product miles are quite low, but you might find out that actually the circuit board inside it is from China. You may also work out that the casing may have come from America. So the product miles there start to add up. So when you transport a product, it uses fuel for the transportation, whether it be by truck or by ship or by aeroplane. Those things have to travel, and that uses fuel, and fuel uses resources, and that is an issue for sustainability. Now, a couple of things to think about, but you don't have to answer them. Why does buying local reduce environmental impact? And the second question, how might buying products locally have a positive social impact? So there's a difference between environmental and social. Social means the people in your area, about the people that live near you, and environmental is about the environmental impacts on the resources and the quality of air, and not using up too many resources and materials. Okay, so have a think about that. You can always jot some notes down, because it's good to think about these things. Pollution. There are different types of pollution. There's atmospheric pollution, so when car fumes are around and about and you breathe them in, that's not so good. And this is damage to the atmosphere in general. So emissions also, not only do they reduce the quality of the air, they also add to a process called greenhouse effect, and that stops some of the heat escaping from the earth. So it heats up the earth and starts to melt polar ice caps and things like that. There is oceanic pollution, and this is obviously pollution from toxins, from rubbish, from dyes and chemicals, and microbeads in plastic and things like that. It's about things that we just throw away, and just they always find their way to the ocean, and that's a big issue, because it kills wildlife, and it obviously increases the amount of toxins and things in the environment in general. The way we use products is really important for sustainability as well. And when we try and design products and use products, we try and use this thing called the 6 R's, which we're going to focus on mainly today. The 6 R's are a set of strategies to help make more sustainable decisions as a consumer and a designer, so someone who buys things and someone who designs stuff. The first one is refuse. We have rethink, we have reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. Now they mean different things. So rethinking, we'll start at the top. Refusing is when you don't agree with the way something is made and you refuse to buy it. So if you've got packaging on bananas in the supermarket and you refuse to buy it, the company aren't going to make any money, so they're going to have to rethink how they package their fruit, because if they're using too much plastic and people refuse to buy it, then they will have to change it, and that's the idea. If you rethink, you are trying to rethink how you do stuff. You're rethinking the way a particular thing is done. So for example, if you always buy your milk in a plastic milk bottle and then you throw those milk bottles away into the recycling or whatever, to rethink that, you might actually have a refillable bottle that you wash and then you take to the shop, you refill it, and then you take it home, and then you're not using any packaging for that. And that's a rethinking, because it's quite different to the way usual milk purchasing goes. So that's an example. Reducing. Reducing is when you're trying to lower the amount of material used. Now, some companies that make containers for drinks, they've started making their plastic or their glass thinner. And what this does is it actually reduces the amount of material that's used. So instead of using 1 kilo of material to make 1,000 bottles, you get to use 1 kilo of material to make 1,500 bottles, which means you get more bottles for the amount of material that you're using. And that's a really clever way to kind of get more from the resources that we're using. Reuse. Reusing is when you get to the end of a product's life cycle. So for example, you have a plastic bottle, and now you could throw that away, you could put it in the recycling, or you could reuse it. Now, the reusing is when you put it to another use, but you don't process it. Now, this gets confused quite a lot with recycling. Recycling has to be melted down and sort of made again into something else, and that uses resources in itself. So reusing is actually really good because it doesn't use any more resources. So for example, you might take a bottle and reuse it. You might take a chair and turn it into something else afterwards. So upcycling, things like that, that's to do with reusing. Repairing. Repairing is important. If we design products that can be used once and then they have to be thrown away, that's not very helpful, not very good. For example, you might have a razor that you shave your face with or whatever. If I had a razor that could be used and then has to be thrown away, that's not very good. But if I had a razor that I could use and then I could replace the blade to repair that blunt blade, then it means I get more use out of the actual handle, which means I'm using less resources, and it works out a bit better. So the same thing with the bicycle. If you couldn't repair your bicycle wheels, then you have to throw the whole bike away and have to buy a whole new one, which A, is expensive, but B, you're using a lot of materials, throwing a lot of materials away. So being able to repair products is really, really important. Lastly, we get on to recycle. Now, recycle is the worst kind of R. We try and avoid to get into this one. This is where you take your materials that you don't need anymore and you melt them down and make them into something new. Now, obviously, this is the worst one because this uses the most amount of energy. It's good to recycle, but doing the other R's first is really, really important because you're actually reducing the amount of material you use. You're trying to make sure you're not using more resources to melt them down and create something else. Okay.